most ridiculous video of the year. Yes, the best of 2024, which you should not take too seriously. Really, it's what I think is the best at the end of this year, but my taste could change over time, and I generally look back if I make a list and always think, oh, that's changed, that's gone up, that's gone down. So it's never entirely accurate, especially when making it on that year. But that's why it's fun to do it, because it's ridiculous, and you should just not take it too seriously. I think some people do, though. Some people beat the list and really take it seriously. Now, this was actually a good year if you stayed away from the blockbusters. Essentially, the blockbusters is one or two good ones, but generally they've been, the kind of mainstream American cinema has been fairly poor. But there's been lots of really good stuff around the world, and there's been lots of strong films. It's just that, you have to look for them. So my criteria really is that it's basically films that have been in general release in 2024 in the UK. If it was a festival before that, which I couldn't get to see, I still count it as 2024. So there's certain films in this list that were released in America in 2023, we got in 2024 in general release. I do not go to film festivals, it's far too far away from where I live, so I don't count them as a release from that year. Also, it's just basically a silly list, really. That's the main thing you have to really stick to. It's just a bit of silliness. I'm going to go through the worst ones as well at the end of the video, but generally it's just a bit of fun, really. So a lot of these films I've already covered on my channel, but some of them I haven't. And the good thing is, certain ones I saw earlier in the year, and so I've had a chance to think about them. Are they still strong? Some films went down a little bit. Some films I thought were going to be at the top, and they end up gradually going down to the runners-up level, which is a good sign if films do that. So I'll actually go through the runners-up at the moment. I've also got a thing called Flawed or Loads of Fun, which are films I'll just mention that I enjoyed, but I don't think really, I couldn't honestly say are the best of the year, but that was a lot of fun with. So the runners-up for me were Dune Part 2, which was very enjoyable, but those other ones I liked more. It's just I'm still a fan of the David Lynch version, even despite all its flaws. And this Dune is a bit more distant. I like Dune Part 2 more than Dune Part 1 by a long shot, but still, I'm still a fan of the David Lynch one. You've had Quiet Place Day 1, which was wonderful, way better than I expected. It almost made your top 10 list, but it just lost out in the last week when I saw two films that kicked it out. The Shadow Strays, which is on Netflix, which is a kung fu movie, an Asian action movie with lots of martial arts, gunplay, everything. It's great. Go see it in the biggest screen as possible. If you've got a projector, put it to your projector and watch it that week, because the action's really strong. You've got Love Lies Bleeding, which was on my top 10 list for a long time, and I still really like the film. It just those other films I liked more as the year went on, but this still is really strong. I mean, if I'd seen it again, I might have put it back on the top list, but it's been months. But I think generally the ones I have above it at the moment I like more, but it's still a wonderful film. The First Omen, which surprised the hell out of me by being good. I'm not an Omen fan at all. My favourite of the Omen films is the second one, because it's so cheesy. So I have no, no sense of awe about the Omen series. I just think the Omen films tend to be silly. But this one really worked, because it was about the psychological breakdown of the young woman who's going to give birth to Damien. It's really good. There's Abigail, which was a cheesy vampire movie that just really worked. It's basically crooks in a house, and there's a vampire there, and they have to try and survive the night. That's it. That's all it, it does what it says in the tin, but it just works. Terrific cast. Everyone knows what kind of film they're in. It just keeps delivering. And it's got lots and lots of blood. You've got The Fall Guy, which, is actually excellent. Far better than it needs to be, because it's adaptation of a TV show, which is a really cheesy TV show. And Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt make it work with their chemistry, and the director, David Leitch, knows exactly what film he's making. It's just one of those films that just really works. It did not do that well at the box office. I think just the idea of doing a stuntman film did not really get people interested. I think it was just the subject matter that just made a lack of interest. But it is a really fun movie. I mean, the mystery is fairly easy to figure out, but a lot of the moments within the film really work. It's a romantic comedy at heart, and it just really works. There's Made in England, which is the films of Pill and Pressburger, a documentary. It's excellent. Scorsese's in it, talking about them. There's lots of other people talking about them, and you get into the interviews with them from the past, and you get a sense of the films. It doesn't cover all the films. There's some films I like that didn't get covered in much detail, but it gives you a sense of who they were, what the problems were in the later years. There's The Vergelac, which is a French film based on Tolstoy story about a vampire, a father who's a vampire, who's turned a vampire, who starts to destroy his own family. And it's based on the idea of a vampire goes for people he loves. And this one's interesting because it's shot in 16mm and sort of keep the budget down so they could just do interesting things with it. And it has a puppet as a vampire rather than just having a person being really skinny and use makeup to use a puppet. And the strangeness of the whole thing just makes it work. It's just a wonderful, strange film. Only the French would ever think of doing in the first place. There's Time Stalker, which was probably the last film that made this list, because I only saw it yesterday. It's Alice Lowe film. She also made Prevenge. This one's a film about someone falling in love with a man. It says woman falls in love with a man in the past, and she keeps getting reincarnated running to this same man. And it's like, and instead of learning from her mistakes through different lives, she seems to get worse and more obsessive. And she causes havoc for other people who get worse and more obsessive as they go on as well. And it's really about romantic illusions and what you actually put into what your image of someone else is. And just the whole idea of romantic obsession is taken to extremes. There's lots of funny gags, lots of beheading and gore. Alice Lowe plays the lead and she gets killed so many times in this film. And it's a fun movie, but there's also some depth to it, just the whole idea of what we see in other people. So it's really worth seeing. It's eccentric. It could have done a bit more money spent on it. I think it get hit by its lower budget, but it still really works. And it's a fun film, with depth. So it's very underrated. It just came and went in the cinemas, which is a real shame. But it was out and then you blinked, it was gone. It was that kind of release. So most people are going to see it on video, basically. So Horizon American Saga Part 1, which was hated critically, loathed critically in every possible way. I liked it. It was an old-fashioned Western. I don't care if no one else likes it. I liked it. I'm looking forward to the second one. And finally Kill, which is an Indian film, action movie that's really brutal. There's not much of a plot. It's just basically terrorists in a train and lots and lots of fight scenes. Lots of hand-to-hand fight scenes. It's just brutal. It's wonderful. So those are my runners-up. Those are the ones that I thought were really enjoyable, but never quite made the list of the best. So I'll do 10 to 1, even though it's still a kind of very vague list in the sense of, it's not that serious. I mean, basically the number one film is probably my favourite film of the year, but there's all of these films I really like. I'll start off with the weirdest one, the one that'll make me go, oh wait, what? So the kind of weirder ones are down the bottom of the best list, but I don't care. So Megalopolis, which is absolutely hated by some people, just loathed, and it is very, very flawed. If I was being specific and saying these are exactly the best films, I couldn't do it. But since it's my list of the best films, the films I liked most, I can put it on a list because it is good-hearted what it's trying to say. It is so strange. It does have some really weird bits, but I love weird films, so this one covered having an optimistic viewpoint and very strange moments and some bizarre performances. This is really one to see. Don't let anyone tell you you'll like it or hate it. You won't know until you watch it, because it's one of those films where you're going to love or hate it. There's no way to figure it out before you go into it. A lot of people are loving to hate it because it makes them think they're cool. And all it does is make them look sad, because they're just going as part of the pack. Really, it's quite sad. Number 9, Civil War, which is the film from Alex Garland from earlier on in the year, starring Kirsten Dunst. It's the idea of America's in the Civil War. We're following these photographers and journalists as they go through the American landscape. Now, everyone was saying, it has to be about Trump, and it has to be about this, it has to be about that. But what it really is what happens when a country falls down and people start fighting their neighbours, and people start either dissolving everything that's civilization or trying to ignore what's happening. And it could take place in any country. They said in America, because America is the one country that always seems to be absolved from all of this internal issue. Every other country has these problems, and they've had some revolutions. America, apart from the one that formed it, haven't really had anything. They've had a civil war, but generally they don't have that much strife. This one is like, what about another country's strife came to America? And what they just behaved in every other country? And that's all it's really about. It's not about MAGA, it's not about any of the stuff that's happening in the modern world. It's about what happens if America just splits. Because it's a bit of feeling of what's happening in America just now, with lots of people with very different points of view. But it looks to what's happening throughout the world to actually look what happens when Civil War actually happens, rather than the ideology of one side would win, one side would lose instantly. It's like, no, it would be much rougher. It would be pretty brutal. And all these things are always brutal, and people turn out to be either more heroic or more cowardly than you'd think, so that it would be much more messy. So that's the film's about that. And about the experience of war from the view of people who are recording it, So that's number 9. Number 8 is Longlegs. The Liz Perkins film. Starred Mika Monroe and Nicolas Cage. It's hard to explain this one, you just have to watch it. It's about a FBI agent trying to track down a serial killer called Longlegs, and how it ties to her life. And it starts out as like a normal procedural film, but it's really more of a horror movie in the sense of it's psychological horror and strange supernatural elements that are hard to pin down, and you just have to go with it. It is wonderful, but it's something that some people will not be able to go all the way with, because it has a sense of humour, but also has a sense of the absurd can be scary. It doesn't need to have a logical explanation, really. It's something that's really absurd and plays in your crazy fears can be as scary as anything logical. So number 7 is Poor Things, a Lanthimos film. Ronan, who does a podcast with me, prefers Kind of Kindness. I've not seen Kind of Kindness yet. I've also not seen The Substance. I've not seen The Bike Riders. There's some films I have not seen that won't be on this list because I haven't seen them yet. And now it's close to Christmas, I'm probably not going to bother because it's a bit late to start watching serious films. But Poor Things I really enjoyed. It is too long, but there's so much in it and there's so much detail in it that even its flaws don't take away from how great so much of it is. I think Ronan's underrating it, to be honest. I think he's going for what he wants from Lanthimos rather than what's this new thing that's happening with him. So I really loved this film, despite its flaws. Number 6 is Hundreds of Beavers, which is the silliest film in this list. It's a all-out comedy from the people who made Lake Michigan Monster. It's done for a very low budget. It's running gag after running gag about a guy who starts out as a maker of beer who ends up becoming a trapper. Try to trap these animals so he can impress his love, so she'll marry him, and impress her father so she'll let her marry him. And he has not much luck, and it's basically like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner done as a whole movie. Just gag after gag, but always changes the gags so that always moves the story on a little bit every so often, so that you're not getting the same joke again and again. It's just wonderful. Hard to explain really what it is beyond it's a really funny comedy that works. It's also in black and white and mainly silent. So it's that kind of film where people made it want to see this film, and that's it. All they want to do is see the film. So number 5 is Perfect Days, another film I haven't talked about on my channel because I've just seen it. It's a Wim Wenders film. It probably wouldn't have if I hadn't just seen it, and I'm still trying to process it. But it's about a man who works in cleaning toilets in Tokyo, and it's about his life. And some people, one critic said it was patronising, which I don't get. It's not. I mean, because it's almost suggesting that this guy can be happy and living a life that people find demeaning and low paid, when in fact it shows you the guy is actually not interested in making tons of money. He's interested in living a life that he finds suitable for himself. And if you've ever worked a job, even for a short time, that isn't particularly wonderful, but you can do it without thinking too much, and where you actually really revere your off time and you find things to do to make life work, you can understand the mentality where I do this job and I'll go and do what I want to do and what brings me joy. And it's what people do all the time, really. Most people are not like in love with their jobs. And most people find things in their lives that are beyond their jobs that actually bring them joy. And that's what this film's all about. And it is a beautiful film. It's one of Wenders' best films. And he hasn't been that great for years, so it's nice to see him do a comeback. Number 4, and from now on, pretty much, I think Perfect Days upwards, these are all kind of interchangeable until we get to the number 1. Number 4 is Furiosa, which is the Mad Max spin-off, prequel, whatever, the Fury Road story from Furiosa's point of view. I've done a video on it. I've watched this film twice in the cinema. It is wonderful. It's just genuinely wonderful. There's not much more to say, but just go and see it. It's like a lot of these films, it's an experience. It doesn't care whether you're into it or not. It's just like, I'm making this film. You're invited along. They did not do that well commercially, but people sort of loved it generally. It's just purely into what its story is. It has some amazing action scenes, and if you get into the rhythm of it, it's just wonderful. And again, it's one of those films that are mainly silent. It's like, there is dialogue at times, but most of the times there's not much talking. You know, it's about what people are doing rather than what they're saying. And when they're saying things, a lot of the time they're lying. So you can get much more from a person from what they do rather than what they say in this film. But it is wonderful, it's epic. Go see my video if you want more on it. Number 3 is The Zone of Interest. Another very quiet film where what is done rather than what is said is important. All about the Holocaust, about a person running a concentration camp and with his family beside him, and how they've sold out any humanity for commercial gain, while absolutely murdering hundreds of thousands of people. And it's just like how humanity can turn off from the horror that's inflicting on other people if it's too uncomfortable. It's just a bit of the kind of darker side of humanity, and how it's not like someone going, it's much more boring and bland and depressing. Just shows how a lot of our instincts are fairly dull, but horrific. You know, it's a wonderful film. Again, I've done a video on it, so go watch the video. Number 2 is The Beast, which I did a video on a few weeks ago. This one's hard to explain. It's a love story over time, sort of like Time Stalker. This one's a more serious film, less pratfalls. It's a bit they try to purify people's DNA so they become more robotic and less emotional, because emotions lead to war, and there's been lots of calamities due to people's emotions. And it's these people going back to their past lives and seeing how their emotions affected them in their past lives. So it's one bit takes place in France in the past, like nearly 20th century, and another bit takes place in America in the late 90s, in the early 2000s, where the internet's starting off and the stalkers, then another bit takes place in the future, where this technology is in place, and it's all about how people get affected by love in different lives, and how it, in different circumstances, your idea of love changes, and it can get better or worse over time, and it's all about existence and what you need from existence through various perspectives, while being the same person going through various lives. It's a wonderful film, but very difficult to explain because it sounds so strange. But you watch the film, it's an experience. And finally, number one is Shadow of Fire, another one I've done a video on. Shinya Tsukamoto's film about Japan after the war. I mean, people became interested in this subject after Godzilla -1, which is a very good, enjoyable film, but Shadow of Fire is a much better film. Shadow of Fire is the kind of brutal reality of this. Well, Godzilla 1 was a bit more, it's a genre movie. It's a bit more optimistic. And Tsukamoto is a genre fan who was in a Godzilla film. He would understand that. But he's making a story about the kind of realities of how people crumble after the war, how people are just left to survive, and some are just psychologically damaged so far that there's no way they can escape, and just the damage caused by war to men, women, children, from various people, and just how it affects them, how it just destroys them, and just the calamity of war beyond the fighting, really, is the best way to put it. This is a wonderful film. I'd recommend you see it with not knowing that much, but if you want to know something, go watch my video on it. But it's just wonderful. So that's my top 10. I'll list a few that I've covered mainly that are fun, that are loads of fun, but they are flawed, and some people like them, some people won't like them. It's that kind of thing. Some of them are divisive. So Godzilla vs. X Kong New Empire, silly as hell, very much a short film. You either love it or hate it. There's no in between. The Mickey film Lumberjack the Monster, which I really enjoyed, but it's not for everybody. It is very strange. Let's Start a Cult, another strange film as a comedy. Joker Fully Ado, which a lot of people really hated. I enjoyed it, but I know there's lots of flaws in it. And I thought it was more interesting than the first one, but it's like Megalopolis. People are scoring points from hating on it because it's the thing to do. No one can think. They have to take one side or the other because they're stupid. Yeah, very moderate opinion there. Scala, about the Scala Cinemas, a documentary. Maxine, which is the final in the X-Pearl Maxine trilogy. I really enjoyed it, but it is flawed, so some people like it more than others. I don't think it was as good as Pearl or X, but I still thought it was better than some of the reviews suggested. There's Hellboy the Crooked Man, which was a nice return to form for the series after the horrible David Harbour starring Hellboy movie that did not work. This one's much more like the Del Toro films, to the degree of it understands what Hellboy should be, really, and then does his own thing but makes a ghostly supernatural story in the backlands, and not try to have him save the world or anything. It's just its own thing. There's Deadpool and Wolverine, fun film, not perfect in any way, but its roughness actually makes it work. Beetlejuice, another non-perfect film, but I enjoyed a lot. The Beekeeper, the Statham film from earlier on in the year, which is utterly ridiculous, but so enjoyable the way Statham films can be. Transformers 1, I'm not a Transformers fan, but this and Bumblebee are the two really good ones. It worked. Despite the fact it had awful trailers, this one, it just worked. There's the 1%er, which is a kung fu movie of a guy who's obsessed, been doing a perfect action film, and it's all the mind of the mad geniuses. And it's also an action movie. It's very enjoyable, a bit strange, and the ending will either entice you or make you hate it. So it's that kind of film. Boy Kills World, a fun action movie. There's not much to it in depth, but it's just so enjoyable for how silly it is. Last Stop in Yuma County, which is a fun little thriller from earlier on in the year. I really enjoyed it. It's but I don't see everyone enjoying it. It's just one of those kind of strange, eccentric films that I liked. Monkey Man, the Dash Patel, not Dash Patel. I can't remember his name now. You know who I'm talking about though. Indian movie, Dev Patel. My brain just went haywire. His retro debut. It got some sniffy reviews, even though it's a solid film. I think the fact that he gets saved by basically trans priests and brought back to life to do his revenge put some people off. But it's an interesting look at Indian culture and how it's very different from ours, but also in similar in other ways. I really liked it, but I know lots of people were less keen on it, but I thought it was very enjoyable. But it is flawed. It's not tried to be a perfect film. It's got lots. The kind of flaws in it are actually part of its charm, though. That's what happens with a lot of these films. A lot of the flaws in them is also part of the charm in this flawed, loads of fun category. The things a lot of people hate about them is things I like. Finally, there's Baby Assassins 2, which is a sequel to Baby Assassins. It's slower than the first one. It's more comic based and like comedy and strangeness, but it does have a great end fight scene. But it just works. The two leads are charming and silly, and it just really works. So that's some fun ones. There's two odd messes. There's Drive Away Dolls by Ethan Coen and The Crow 2024, which are two films that I cannot say, oh, you'll definitely love these films. You probably won't. They are eccentric. Narratively, they are messes. They have like some major narrative flaws, but they have moments I really liked. And there's other bits I was like, you could have done that better. But the two films are like, I can't hate them. I found them more enjoyable than a lot of films I would say were, very flawed but fun. These ones were messy, but there were some bits I really enjoyed. And there was bits I was like, why'd you do that? That's stupid. But it's always good to have a couple of films like that in a year. I just think that's important. Now we're going to the worst, which is mostly films, but there's also a TV show, which is The Acolyte, the Star Wars one. I won't get any further done a video on it, but it was bloody awful. It was horrible, horrible, horrible. So for the worst though, there was Trap, which was so bad it was good. I'm going to have to admit, it's so bad it was good, but I can't say it's in any way good, but it was enjoyably terrible. It's the only enjoyably terrible one in this list. There was Salem's Lot, which was tedious and a bad adaptation of a really good book. And then just like all the horror stuff just did not land. It was just like it was so stylized and or tried to be, but its stylizations made you emotionally detached from everything, and it just became this thing of things are happening, but you don't care. And the whole film's like that. And it's just gets worse and worse and it's terrible. Another film like that is Gladiator 2, which is just so tedious and horrible, and I was so bored through most of it. And I saw it not long after Salem's Lot, and it just that same feeling of, oh god, can this film not end? Put me in misery. There's The Heretic, which the Hugh Grant starring movie, the guys who did 65. Bloody awful. It is a terrible view of religion, which is it quotes everything that anyone who knows about religion will know straight off, as if it's clever, and then does horror movie stuff that doesn't add or subtract to what it's originally done. It has all these little in jokes, like the pit and the house is designed like Tartarus from Greek mythology, which is the lowest level of hell. As if having that design is meant to make it clever, does not. It just makes it feel stupider. And just the whole thing is so smug. It's so smug. It's so annoying. And it's just like, it doesn't really have a clue what it's got to say about religion. Just that it's a good motivation for this sicko horror villain to have, even though it doesn't seem to be ultimately what's driving him. What's driving him seems to be just fairly ugly and silly stuff. And it's just not interesting. It takes what should be interesting and makes it really dull, and it infuriated me as I was watching it. So I was going to do a video on how bad it was, but I just thought, I can't be bothered. It's so crappy. It's not worth it. So we've Red One, which is the Rock, Chris Evans, Christmas movie, directed by Jake Kasdan. This is one of those films that feels like the film was made by committee. The director feels non-existent. Like, the guy Jake has made it has done some good films, or good entertainment films, but that the guy who made those films doesn't seem to be in this film. Everything's the dullest script ideas. There's no progression to the set pieces or the story. It just, things happen, and then they think, oh, we have to bring this in now, so something is ignored for like half the movie, something comes back and if it's important. Nothing's developed very well. The Chris Evans character is so terribly written that it's impossible for him to do much with it. And he's the only one that's trying. The Rock is tedious as hell. J.K. Simmons is Santa, and he's obviously picking up the check. He's one of those actors that, if he's picking up the check, he'd still be entertaining. But you can tell there's nothing going on with him. It's just like, I'll say your lines, I'll be professional, but... And there's a lot of actors who are given some of the worst things to deliver. Just some of the worst lines, explaining ideas which are terrible, and the lines are just as bad, and it's just like... A lot of actors have embarrassed themselves in this film, so it's absolutely awful. Without having the fun of being enjoyably bad. Like Trap. Now we've got 2 films that have lasted for a while, and my head has been the worst. These were the 2 obvious worst ones for a long time, and they're probably still the worst, which is Argyle and Borderlands. Borderlands should not have been bad. It's based on a fun idea for a game. All you do is have a proper director, not Eli Roth, who messed up everything up and couldn't direct any of the action scenes with any style at all. It's just clunky movements. It's just so tedious. Every action scene is so tedious. And the reshot in the ending, which makes it even just more slick, but just as boring. Like Tim Miller came in from Deadpool to do that, and that was boring too. Everything was miscast. The storyline was terrible. It's just, everything was so boring. But Argyle was even more annoying. Argyle was one of those films that actually, when I was watching, I was so painfully hating on it. Because I had to stop halfway through, go away, come back, watch the other half. And I thought, well, at least I know what I'm to expect. But then the second half was even worse than the first half, which I never thought was possible. A lot of good actors in here getting destroyed by the script. It's just awful. I've done a video. It's just awful. Do not see this film. It's so bad. It's so painful. So that's the worst out of the way. But ignore the worst and go and see the good ones. There's lots of really good films this year. Just there's a few really bad ones at the end. But Shadow of Fire, The Beast, Zone of Interest, Furiosa, Perfect Days, Hundreds of Beavers, Poor Things, Longlegs, Civil War, Megalopolis. Those are my top 10. They're all worth seeing. You may not like every one of them, but they're all worth seeing. They're all alive. Which is all you can really ask for in a film. To have it still be alive and have something to it. So, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back next year with some more videos. If there's anything interesting comes on, I'll do a video, but I'll probably not, because I'll probably be too lazy. So that's me for now. Bye.